Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel if you've been here before, and welcome if you're new. I'm EDJ, and we're continuing with Epic History TV's series on the Napoleonic Wars. So now we have arrived in the Battle of Borodino 1812, and I think, one of the bloodiest battles of just the Napoleonic Wars. This is where Russia, who at this point had kind of been, kind of the scorched earth, retreating further into territory, the use of the Cossacks. They have had encounters with Napoleon, but not like a straight up battle in like at least of this magnitude, because this is like probably the biggest battle, and I think this is what led to Napoleon capturing Moscow. And this was just, I guess you could say, a bloodbath is probably an appropriate term to describe, this. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the specifics. I think the title just says it for itself. This is gonna be quite the show. So I don't really have much else to add to that, other than, if you want to watch this video without my face here, or, me commenting or talking, I will put the link to this video down in the description down below. I always like to give credit where it is due. And with that said, without any further ado, let's get right into it. Let's watch Napoleon's bloodiest day, the Battle of Borodino, 1812.
This Epic History TV video is brought to you by Magellan TV, the documentary streaming service.
All of my 50 battles, the most terrible was the one I fought at Borodino. Dang, that's saying something. Especially with, like, the Battle of the Nations, Leipzig, like, Borodino's legacy, and, like, Leipzig and the Battle of Eylau, like, Napoleon's been in some pretty bloody battles, and, for him to say this of Borodino speaks really highly of this battle, and just,
Russia, 1812. Napoleon invades his former ally with the largest army Europe has ever seen. But for the French Emperor, the decisive blow remains frustratingly beyond reach. Russia's resilience is unlike anything he's ever encountered. And as winter closes in, his army begins the most infamous retreat in history. September 1812. 10 weeks had passed since Napoleon invaded Russia with more than 500,000 men. The French Emperor wanted a quick victory over the Russians, one that would force Emperor Alexander to make peace and agree to French terms. But at Vitebsk, and then Smolensk, the outnumbered Russian army had narrowly escaped his clutches. The holy city of Smolensk had been virtually destroyed. Napoleon had advanced deep into Russia, and months of marching had left his army decimated by disease and exhaustion. It was now half its original strength, and summer was nearly over. But finally, 70 miles west of Moscow, near the village of Borodino, the Russians had turned to offer battle. Napoleon would have a chance to win the decisive victory that he believed would end the war. In 1812, Napoleon was master of Europe, but his meteoric rise to power had nearly been cut short several times by cannonballs, bullets, even by Madame Guillotine. His early years are brilliantly retold in the drama documentary Napoleon, available now on documentary streaming service Magellan TV, generous sponsors of this video.
I've seen clips from this Napoleon. What was it called? The series was like Heroes and Villains or something like that. But yeah, there is an episode on Napoleon, and one of the better interpretations of Napoleon, at least in his early, it covers his early rise, the siege of Toulon. So yeah, I've seen like some of it, but mainly through YouTube, you know.
Magellan TV offers access to more than 2,000 documentaries on history, science, space and true crime, available through your TV, computer, phone or tablet from as little as $5 a month. New documentaries are added weekly and many are available in glorious 4K. And if you visit magellantv.com/epichistorytv, you can try out their service for a whole month for free. Magellan TV has dozens of programs we'd happily recommend, from a history of aviation to World War II's Eastern Front. So if you're a history fan, we think this is a great offer. Thanks to Magellan TV for supporting the channel.
Soldiers, here is the battle you have so long desired. Henceforward, victory depends on you. Napoleon's proclamation on the army to the army on the eve of the battle.
The Russian army, commanded by the 67-year-old, one-eyed veteran General Kutuzov, occupied a defensive position across the two main roads leading from Smolensk to Moscow. General Barclay de Tolly's First Army was on the right, its front protected by the Kalatsha River, steep-banked but shallow and easily forded. Prince Bagration's Second Army was on the left, a more open position but reinforced by major earthworks, the Great Redoubt, and what the French nicknamed, for their shape, the Flèche, the arrows. Another forward redoubt at Borodino was expected to delay the enemy's advance. Historians still dispute the size of the Russian army, but it's likely Kutuzov had around 121,000 men and 680 guns at Borodino. On the 5th of September, Napoleon's army began to arrive from the west. Around 130,000 men and 585 guns. Napoleon quickly saw that the Borodino redoubt would have to be taken before he could deploy his army, and ordered an immediate assault. The attack was led by Compan's 5th Division of the 1st Corps, supported by the Polish 5th Corps to the south. In several hours of heavy fighting, the redoubt changed hands more than once. But late that evening, the Russians finally withdrew to their main line, and the redoubt fell to the French. Its capture had cost them an estimated 4,000 casualties, while the Russians lost around 6,000 men. Napoleon noted how few prisoners were taken, a worrying sign of the enemy's unbroken resolve. Both sides spent the next day preparing for battle. Marshal Davout, commanding French First Corps and widely considered Napoleon's most able subordinate.
Heck yeah, he is. Davout, Davout, Davout. For anyone new watching this, a huge Davout fan. He is my favorite marshal, and always happy to see Davout. Always happy to see him.
Appealed to the Emperor to use his corps to make a wide, outflanking attack to the south. But Napoleon dismissed the idea as too risky, and instead began preparing for a massive frontal assault on the Russian defenses.
Oh no, Napoleon, I think you should listen to Davout. The man is undefeated and he's a genius. So I've heard things like I've heard that Davout 100% loyal to Napoleon until the end, but yeah, Napoleon apparently didn't have the greatest relationship with Davout, you know, especially compared to his other marshals. And yeah, I've heard things as to why they didn't, but either way, I don't know how much of it is true. I don't want to just speculate and throw things out there, but yeah, the thing is about the frontal assaults is that full-on frontal assaults what Napoleon is planning are always so brutal. You know, I think the purpose of them is to basically push the enemy back, overwhelm, but yeah, like the numbers are pretty close in this battle, so that's like I already see the potential for bloodbath in just that idea because like I said, we've seen so many like the frontal assaults in just this series alone, and they're always so brutal and bloody and just yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a bit biased towards Davout, but I think Napoleon should have let Davout do what he wanted to do. Then again, who knows? Napoleon's not... Obviously, they're both military geniuses, and it's like when you're in class and the two smartest kids have a different answer, and you're like, who's right? Like, you know, I don't know, maybe Davout. I'm only siding with Davout at the moment, is because I know I have the benefit of hindsight that, yeah, this battle was a bloodbath, so I don't know. I hate to see the MVP Davout not get his way, but, you know, that's what happened. Can't change that, it's already been done for hundreds of years now.
Here's one thing you need to do before you buy anything online. Don't spend another dime on Amazon until you...
I could not escape the feeling that something huge and destructive was hanging over all of us. Captain von Linsow.
Shortly after dawn on the 7th of September, Orthodox priests paraded one of Russia's holiest icons, Our Lady of Smolensk, before the Russian army. It was a stirring sight for many devout Russian soldiers.
Yeah, I think, like he mentioned last video, Alexander had this weird religious epiphany where, and then like proclaimed Napoleon as the Antichrist, so there is a religious undertone here. And like I said, I mentioned in the first Egypt video of Napoleon we saw, that when you bring in religion and God into the mix, it like already nationalistic, you know, pride, fighting for your country, that's a lot for most soldiers, but I feel like if you throw in religion, and there's like a certain fervor towards that just makes people want to fight even harder, and willing to die more, you know, kind of like, you know, there are some people who would commit suicide bombings out of, you know, like religion. So I'm just saying, like, when you bring in religion, it adds another like element that makes people not want to submit, you know? So I think that, and also, you know, like last video, Alexander and a lot of people of Russia, the morale was getting low because this was dragging on and they weren't having any decisive victory. So Alexander pressured the general Kutuzov? I don't know. The point is, he pressured the general that you need a fight and you need a win now. Like, that's already pressure enough, so they're throwing out all the morale boosting things they can, because in their eyes, Russia needs to win right now.
Thousands of whom would not live to see dusk.
Yeah, that's,
The battle began at 6 a.m. as French batteries opened a deafening cannonade against the Russian defences. Eugene's 4th Corps advanced on Borodino village, lightly held by Jaegers of the Russian Imperial Guard. After clearing the village, his infantry crossed the Kalacha and advanced towards the Great Redoubt, but were driven back with heavy losses. The Russians burned the bridge across the river, but did not launch a counterattack, and Eugene was able to move cannon into the village to put flanking fire on the Great Redoubt. In the centre, Davout's 1st Corps began its advance against the Fleches, coming under heavy fire. While on the right, the Polish 5th Corps, ordered to take Utitsa, got held up in the woods and ravines. Their slow advance allowed Tushkov's 3rd Corps to send a division north to reinforce the Fleche defences. Kutuzov, at his headquarters in Gorky, took little part in the battle, leaving tactical decisions to his subordinates. Barclay and Bagration had spent most of the summer arguing furiously over strategy, But in the hour of crisis, they put their differences aside. They could see the main French attack was falling on the Russian centre and left. So Barclay ordered General Bagavout's 2nd Corps south to reinforce Bagration. Fighting around the Flèche intensified as the French captured one of the earthworks, only to be driven out by a Russian counterattack. Davout himself was injured in the fighting as he fell from his dying horse, but he refused to leave the field.
Heck yeah, we love the Iron Marshal. He's like, I'm hurt, let's keep fighting. Love to see it. Love Davout. Love Davout.
When Russian cavalry counterattacked, Marshal Murat himself led the French cavalry forward to meet them. Ney's 3rd Corps now joined the attack on the Flèche. A charge by Russian cuirassiers forced Murat to take shelter in a square of Württemberg infantry. Murat, with his flamboyant dress and reckless courage, had now even made a name for himself among the Russians. The Cossacks in particular saw him as a kindred spirit and were eager to capture him alive if they could.
Wow.
To the south.
Yeah, I like he said Ney and Murad, because Ney and Murad, mainly, they're kind of both known for cavalry. You know, like... Yeah, so Napoleon sent out the big boy cavalries right here. And yeah, Russian cavalry is insane. The Kursaw? I can't believe I've just forgotten the word. But yeah, that's insane.
Polish troops now took Utitsa, which the Russians set ablaze before withdrawing. But General Bagavout's reinforcements arrived just in time to shore up the Russian flank. Around 10 AM, Eugène launched another attack on the Great Redoubt. It was briefly captured by Murat's 1st Division, before his men were thrown out by a ferocious Russian counterattack. The Russian army's 27-year-old artillery commander, General Kutesov, was killed leading one of these counterattacks. A heroic death, but a blow to the organization of Russian artillery for the rest of the day. Fighting continued to rage around the Flèche earthworks. Some counted as many as 6 major French assaults, involving 45,000 troops, with hundreds of cannon on both sides, pouring fire into the packed ranks. More than once, French infantry fought their way into one of the Russian positions, only to be driven out again at bayonet point. Junot's Westphalian Corps was sent forward in support, helping to clear Russian skirmishers from the woods to the south. General Bagration was close to the action, overseeing the defense of the Flèche, leading forward reinforcements and ordering counterattacks. Around 10 AM, he was hit in the leg by shell fragments. Mortally wounded, he was carried from the field. Shaken by the loss of their iconic commander, the exhausted Russian infantry began to fall back. The French finally took the Flèche. Marshal Murat then led forward Friant's division, 1st Corps' last reserve, supported by waves of heavy cavalry on both flanks. Russian grenadiers formed squares to ward off the French cuirassiers, while their own guard cavalry fought the French in a giant confused melee, with heavy losses on both sides. The Russians resisted doggedly, but the combined onslaught of French artillery, cavalry and infantry proved irresistible. As the Russians pulled back, Friant's infantry fought their way into the village of Semyonovskaya.
Man, yeah, that seems to be going really well right now, you know. Murad is distinguishing himself. You got Davout, who's always, you know, great. And just, yeah, things seem to be going super well at the moment, you know.
The Russian centre was in disarray and seemed close to breaking. Surely now was the time for Napoleon to deliver the knockout blow.
Soldiers, face to the enemy. Let's go and get killed. No, I love how brutally honest. Alright, let's go die now.
For most of the day, Napoleon remained at his headquarters near Borodino. Those around him later said that illness, as well as the exertions of the long campaign, had left him tired and irritable. As the Russian centre buckled, Murat and his staff urged him to send forward his last reserve, the Imperial Guard. The Emperor refused. If there is a
Boy, yeah, Napoleon's sickness, it's interesting that that's mentioned, because, yeah, Napoleon gets sick. I think of, like, Waterloo, where he was definitely off in terms of health, because, yeah, I think Napoleon died due to, like, what, stomach cancer? So, yeah, illness, you know, it's just interesting to hear him mention illness, because, yeah, Napoleon does end up ill, especially in his later life. So, yeah. So, yeah, Murat's like, hey, send in the cavalry, and Napoleon's like, nah, I'm good. Like I said, it's hard to, like, criticize Napoleon, because Napoleon's a military genius, you know, and, yeah, with Davout and him, like, I'm, like, a bit on Davout's side, but then again, it's really hard to be 100%, because Napoleon is still Napoleon, and it's like, the man is a genius on his own, and, yeah, but I don't know how to feel about his refusal here. Wait, let me hear that again.
The Imperial Guard. Murat and his staff urged him to send forward his last reserve, the Imperial Guard. The Emperor refused. If there is another battle tomorrow, he asked them, where is my army? But he did make one exception. Barclay was continuing to move troops from his unengaged right wing to bolster the centre. As Osterman Tolstoy's 4th Corps arrived behind the Russian centre, French observers feared they were massing for an attack. So Napoleon ordered forward General Sorbier's Guard artillery. His batteries opened a devastating fire on the enemy. Yet even as they were mown down in their ranks, the Russian infantry stood their ground.
Yeah. I understand completely on Napoleon, like, yeah, he's reserving his troops because, you know, he's anticipating perhaps another battle. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows if he had done that at the urging of his staff and Murat? Who knows what would have happened? That one's a bit iffy, I don't want to speculate. But yeah. Yeah, it seems like Napoleon's definitely doing things his way this time around. You know, he's not listening to Davout, he's not listening to the suggestions of Murat. Napoleon, you know, for the most part seems to be sticking on his own ideas at the moment. At least that's what we're getting from this video. And yeah, I'm wondering if his health and irritability is starting to, like, affect his decisions. Again, I'm not condemning his decisions, mind you. I'm just saying, I wonder if there's something to that is making him stick to his guns at the moment.
On the Russian right wing, all remained quiet, so General Platov, commander of the Don Cossacks, proposed that he lead an attack on the lightly defended Borodino village. Permission received, Generals Platov and Uzarov led a force of 8,000 Cossacks and cavalry across the Kalacha River.
Freaking Cossacks, man, they're terrifying.
They fell on French and Italian troops around Borodino with complete surprise, spreading panic and disorder. Grouchy's 3rd Cavalry Corps had to be pulled back across the river to drive off the Russians. Russian commanders saw this raid as a missed opportunity, but it had delayed the next French attack by 2 hours, and may have persuaded Napoleon that he was right to hold back his reserve.
I had never seen such carnage. General Rapp, Napoleon's at camp, wounded for the 22nd time. Oh my goodness.
Mobile games are going big.
22nd
Around 3
time,
p.m.,
that's insane.
the French launched their biggest assault yet on the Great Redoubt. Russian gunners targeted the French infantry advancing to their front, allowing French cavalry to outflank the redoubt and charge it from the rear. Saxon cavalry were first in, cutting down Russian infantry and gunners almost to the last man. It was an astonishing feat by the horsemen, against all the rules of war, and testament to the ferocity of the fighting. As Eugene's infantry consolidated their hold on the redoubt, he ordered forward all the available cavalry to exploit this success. But they were met and checked by the last Russian cavalry reserves. Eugene now implored Napoleon to commit the Imperial Guard, but again the Emperor refused. "I will not destroy my guard," he told his staff. "I am 800 leagues from France, and I will not risk my last reserve."
The Guard had a reputation, I believe, that they were comprised of some of Napoleon's best, but a lot of the war, I don't think they were used at that much. And I remember it was in Waterloo, I believe, he decided, because of the legendary status of the Guard, he sent them, and they got mowed down, but, you know, but, yeah, I guess Napoleon was a bit reserved, but, like I said, here I'm a bit iffy on Napoleon's decisions. With Davout, I'm a bit mixed about listening, because Davout is, like I said, probably a bit biased here, my favorite marshal. I think I'd argue, probably an equal to Napoleon, and a genius on his own. So I'm a bit mixed on that, between the disagreement between those two there. With Murat and them imploring him to send out the Guard, I'm willing to take Napoleon's side more, because I don't know Murat to be an equal to Napoleon. But now I'm starting to think maybe, like I said, I'm a bit iffy on Napoleon's decision about the Guard here. I can understand it, but I'm wondering if he probably should have listened to his, people practically begging him to send the Guard. But, yeah, I don't know, I'm feeling a bit iffy about this situation with Napoleon.
By 5 p.m., both armies were in a state of utter exhaustion. The battlefield was strewn with dead and wounded. Some infantry battalions could muster only a third of their strength. Cavalry could advance no faster than a trot. Gun crews were collapsing with fatigue. As dusk approached, fighting slowly died out across the battlefield. Napoleon and the French army expected the fighting to resume the next day. But by dawn, Kutuzov, having learned the full, horrifying scale of Russian losses, had ordered a withdrawal. The losses on both sides were enormous. Russian casualties are estimated at 44,000. French losses around 30,000, including 49 generals, 12 of them killed.
That's insane.
Borodino would prove to be the bloodiest single day of the Napoleonic Wars.
Boy, man.
The Russian army could not fight another battle until it had received major reinforcements. And so Kutuzov decided that he must abandon Moscow. On the 15th of September, a week after his victory at Borodino, Napoleon entered the city. He would find it virtually deserted, and already the first fires starting to burn. thank you to the artist.
Yeah, and that's where it gets awful. Oh boy, yeah, that's I understand completely about Napoleon not using the guard. Like, he has used the guard before, I'm certain. And there is a certain aura of, like, invincibility. It had a certain aura to it that I understand Napoleon, not wanting to use them unwisely, you know? But, yeah, I'm almost wondering if he had used them, if things would have been drastic or different. Oh no, like I said, I'm a bit iffy on Napoleon on this video in particular. A part of me is for, understands, another part of me is like, I don't know. I don't know, I'm a bit mixed right now at the moment, but yeah, I'm gonna rough through these videos right now, so I don't really have much to add. I'm gonna jump to the infamous Russian retreat now. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.